Fight over proposed mine divides the town of Dalhousie, New Brunswick. Andrew Coyne, columnist and contributor to climate change denial. The feds grant BC's request to recriminalize public drug use. 6 children are repatriated to Canada from Syria, though their mother is still there. Haitian man demands to know why he's still sanctioned by Canada despite Canadian police training at his property in Haiti. Migrant rights activist detained in Tunisia, and Israel has captured control of the Rafah border crossing. Good morning. It's Wednesday, May 8th. I'm Nora. Here are your headlines. First to Dalhousie, New Brunswick, where 2 Quebec companies want to turn a quarry into a mine, but the new mine would be much larger. There, they plan to mine pozzolan, a volcanic rock that the company Carbonic Inc. says can be used to produce a low-carbon alternative for cement. When cement is made with pozzolan, it can replace limestone, eliminating emissions associated with processing limestone for cement. CBC's Alexandre Silberman reports that the pozzolan would come from the quarry and a quote-unquote small mountain and then be processed nearby and shipped out of Canada. Residents of Dalhousie are divided on the project. The open-pit mine would operate near a school and residential area, and people are worried it might impact the local quality of life. To which I say, talk to the folks in Timmins, Ontario, who agreed to have an open-pit mine in their town. Actually, I don't know if they agreed to it, but, people embraced it. I do appreciate that kind of commitment to mining. At least it isn't out of sight, out of mind. But the project developers are promising that there would be hundreds of jobs while the mine is being built, and just 168 jobs when the mine is up and running. The community is hungry for jobs after the closure of a paper mill, a chemical plant, and a power generation station, though construction jobs are fleeting. The rock was created 400 million years ago when Sugarloaf Mountain was a volcano. There is enough rock there for the mine to last for 100 years, promised the developers. Carbonic has already received public funding for the project. The Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency gave Carbonic $1.2 million to pay for geological and environmental surveys. Next to news about Canada's go-to opinion journalist, Andrew Coyne. Jeff Dambicki from the group DSMOG is reporting that CRA data shows that Andrew Coyne was a member of the board of the Aurea Foundation for a decade, from 2006 to 2016. While he was on the board, the Aurea Foundation gave $6.4 million in charitable donations to Canadian think tanks that did work that denied the existence of climate change. The think tanks included the Fraser Institute, the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, the Frontier Centre for Public Policy, the Montreal Economic Institute, and the Atlantic Institute for Market Studies, all far-right think tanks that have helped shape public opinion in Canada for right-wing ideology. The foundation's money comes from Peter Munk, the founder of Barrick Gold. So beware of those who Canadian media allows to rise to the top. They are rarely forthcoming with their political ideologies and instead want the reader to think that they're just an average person coming at issues the way that any non-involved freethinker might come to them. Next to BC, where Global News' David Baxter is reporting that the federal government is allowing BC to ban the use of most drugs in public places. This came after Premier David Eby did an about-face on his government's drug policies that ended criminal sanctions for people who were using drugs in public. The pilot was supposed to last for 3 years and started in 2023, but already Eby has changed his mind, claiming that while, quote, addiction is a mental health issue, it is not a criminal issue, unquote, and that the decriminalization project was supposed to be, quote, about removing the stigma for people struggling with addiction, preventing them potentially from reaching out to others and ask for help, for fear of arrest, for fear of a criminal record, unquote. Eby is now creating the conditions for people who use drugs in public to be responded to with, criminal charges. So, not a criminal issue, except if you are homeless or using drugs outside. And so this means that the only way that you can use drugs is inside your private residence. If you have no residence and use drugs outside, you can be arrested. Federal Mental Health and Addictions Minister Yara Sachs said the same thing as Eby, almost word for word. Quote, "This is a health crisis, not a criminal one. That being said, communities need to be safe," unquote. That being said, sax. So they recriminalize the drugs, even though this is a health crisis, not a criminal one. And Yara Sachs manages to say that in the same sentence. This would be a joke if it wasn't that people's lives are on the line. Next, 6 children who've been living in a detention camp in Syria have finally been repatriated to Canada. The camp was for captured ISIS members. The children are now in Montreal, and all are staying together, which is good news because there was fear that they'd be split up upon arriving in Canada. Nathaniel Dove from Global News reports that they were able to come to Canada after a delegation of Western representatives met with the Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria. Children were repatriated to the United States, Holland, and Finland, and 2 adult women were repatriated to the U.S. and Holland. For the Canadians, their mother did not come back with them. The family's lawyer, Lawrence Greenspan, said that they didn't know where the mother was. She had left the camp and was probably trying to make her way to Canada as she intends to stay with her children. But internal memos that Global News obtained show that Canada didn't repatriate her because the police don't have evidence to arrest her when she comes back to Canada. That's right. They want to be able to arrest her, but they can't. And so they weren't planning to repatriate her. CSIS warned that they believed that the woman had quote-unquote extremist ideological beliefs and is a threat to national security, but not so much of a threat that she's actually broken any laws. This woman is the last of 9 who has not been yet repatriated, reports Global News. 2 of the 9 who have been repatriated were charged with terrorism. And our ever-eloquent and deep-thinking Foreign Affairs Minister, Mélanie Joly, had this to say about the children, quote, "I just want their well-being," unquote. Which is obviously not true because then you'd have their mother with them. That would be part of their well-being. Anyway, more news from Global Affairs Canada, but this time news from Haiti. Renaud Deeb is asking for himself to be removed from Canada's sanctions list. He is a member of the economic elite in Haiti, and the government used his property to evacuate Canadians from Haiti via helicopter. They also used his property to practice police training exercises. But even still, he remained sanctioned by Canada, and he's been sanctioned since December 2022. Deeb says that he has no connection to the violence happening in Haiti. And as a result of being sanctioned, he has travel restrictions placed on him and he can't access financial services and some jobs as a result. He is an importer of consumer goods working with the company Deca Group, according to his application to the federal court, as cited by Daryl Greer with the Canadian Press. Canada apparently added him to the sanctions list because of his involvement with bribery, tax evasion, and financing gangs. These are all things that Deeb rejects as being true. There are 11 members of Haiti's economic elite who are on Canada's sanctions list. Next to Tunisia, where Sadia Mosba has been detained. Mosba is an activist who is involved in defending migrant rights, and her group is also vocally anti-racist. Officially, Mosba is being investigated for financial crimes. But Tunisia's government has been brutal towards migrants, especially migrants coming from sub-Saharan Africa who cross through Tunisia to make passage for Europe. The Tunisian government has been outwardly racist and accused anyone of defending and helping migrants as traitors who are foreign funded. And finally, Israeli forces have seized the Rafah border crossing. The border crossing was controlled by Egypt until now, and it was the only place where humanitarian aid was getting into Gaza. The Rafah border crossing has also been the only exit path for the few Gazans who managed to get out. Israel has called for people in Rafah to evacuate, and that Israel has set up field hospitals, tents, water, and medical supplies. Except, Israel also has had warplanes bombing residences, and at least 12 people have been killed in the last 24 hours. In eastern Rafah, Israel has killed 20 people, who Israel says were Hamas fighters. Here is Al Jazeera's Hani Mahmoud reporting from Rafah. Quote, "It's been a very difficult night. It's been very violent, very bloody, and full of destruction. The Israeli military is strategically cutting off the Gaza Strip and sealing it off from the region. With the Israeli military presence there right now, we can safely say that we're looking at a very difficult situation in terms of getting humanitarian aid into Gaza. At the same time, when we look at the location of the Rafah crossing at almost the center of the city, that indicates that we're very close to a full invasion of Rafah," unquote. The United States has opposed a ground invasion of Rafah, and like the good little lapdogs that we are, Canada has also said that we oppose, quote, "a full-scale Israeli military operation in Rafah," unquote. Those are your headlines for Wednesday, May 8th. I'm Nora. You're listening to this podcast at sandynora.com, on the Real News Network podcast feed, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Have a wonderful Wednesday. I'll talk to you tomorrow.